they at the literally like the last second they bowed out because the merger between PayPal and eBay, they offered them a crap load of money to stay and work on the connection between PayPal and eBay and getting all that integrated.
Welcome to Get Real 411, the podcast where real experts give real advice on all things real estate. I'm Jamie.
And I'm Brad.
Join us as we explore real estate successes and pitfalls through the eyes of our esteemed guests.
Now let's get real.
Today we have with us my good friend Jason Frazier, the EVP of Growth at Leadpops, marketing master, coach to many loan officers through next level LOs, and just an all-around fantastic person. How are you today, Frazier?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on here. And hey, it's a great day. I'm excited.
Great day.
We're super excited to chat with you today, Jason, because we know that our audience is going to get so much out of this. You are known in our industry as a marketing guru, and it's all about real estate. So we definitely want to dive in and listen to your story, how you got involved, coming up into this business, what you're doing today, and how you're helping people to market to the consumer in this crazy environment we're in right now that's so different than where we were just 6 months ago. So why don't we start with just your background?
Sure. Yeah. So it's I was born into the mortgage industry, literally, and my mom was working for a mortgage company, or she started as a receptionist at a mortgage company. It's a family-owned business called Mason McDuffie. Actually, it's one of the oldest mortgage companies in the country, founded in 1887 out of Berkeley, California. And 3 days after I was born, I was on a little baby carrier on her desk. I believe she was the closing manager at the time, but she actually ended up being the first woman CEO of a mortgage company in this country. And so I grew up in the industry, had family that was in the industry, real estate, mortgage, and so it's just something that I've been around my entire life. But my path went differently, mostly because my mom told me not to get in the mortgage industry, growing up, but. It's one time maybe I should have listened to my mom, but I didn't. I went into technology, and there's a whole story on how that happened. But save you guys that boring story and just let you know that. So I came up in the world of technology startups, venture capital. I used to work for Peter Thiel, who is one of the founders of PayPal. And that was a great world to be a part of. It actually shaped a lot of how I think differently and how I look at the financial markets and everything else. And there's a lot of synergy between working in a hedge fund and being in the mortgage market. And in 2009, I took a sabbatical. I made a lot of money. I didn't really need to work. And my family's company, Mason McDuffie, was going through kind of a change, and they asked me to consult and audit their technology systems because that's what I was at the time, as being a SVP of tech and a CIO, and so I went and did that, and they asked if I wanted to come on board. So I decided, hey, I thought it would be kind of fun to work for my mom and do kind of take up the mantle a little bit. And so I did that in 2009. Obviously the perfect time to get into mortgage, as it turned out to be. But it was interesting. It was an interesting shift going into mortgage from where I was, working at a global macro hedge fund that had an AUM of just a little bit over 8 billion. The dynamic is a little different. Technology is a little different. It was like going in a time machine with all the tech that the mortgage company had and what they did. So I basically kind of rebooted that whole world of tech that they had at the company, and then over that 10-year period, I held a lot of different roles as the chief strategy officer, the chief technology officer, and the chief marketing officer, and actually held all those roles at the same time. I got into marketing just almost as a necessity because I saw where we were going. I was doing because I came from the world of like the Facebooks, the LinkedIns, the YouTube. I saw a need to help our company, modernize our marketing and be out there on social media. And at the time, the marketing at our company just wasn't that. It was bank marketing, so they just didn't even know that world. So in 2016, I went all in on the marketing front, and I did that. Went on my own, ran my own coaching company for a couple of years, then got back into the industry, did a lot of public speaking, still do that to this day. And kind of the rest is the history of my story.
I love it. I think one of the things that resonates with a lot of our colleagues in the industry, and one of the many reasons I think so many people follow you, is you have, that saying different is better. It's all about real talk, being authentic, because we know that consumers, they've heard it all and they've seen it all. And if you don't differentiate yourself, particularly in a market like we're in right now, which is inarguably incredibly challenging for a lot of folks, if you don't differentiate yourself now, they're just going to go with the next guy on the block that appears to be cheaper, appears to be faster. And we have to educate our consumers on what makes us unique and best able to serve them. I think that's a lot of what you talk about. But the other cool thing about your background in tech is it plays directly into all of the coaching and advice that I see you giving. I know that you just launched a couple of different things. I know that you launched a lead webinar. I'd love to hear more about that. And then I also know that you just launched the Next Level Community. And I know you've got several hundred loan officers between both of those that are tuning in to get some best practices on how to thrive through this market. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So during my time, I ran direct to consumer for a couple of years, and I did that through paid, and I also did that through just organic marketing. And so since 2016, I've generated a little bit over 300 million in closed loans through my marketing. And so with the Leads webinar, it's leadswebinar.com, and it's a free service. I did this simply because our industry is horrible at lead generation. And then you have outsiders coming in to sell loan officers leads, not understanding from a loan officer perspective, not understanding that the leads that are sold to our industry in a given year, go back to 2019, it was 125 million. And in that year, there was 5.5 million transactions. So without boring you with the math, basically out of all the leads that were sold, less than 2% had a chance of closing from paid ads. So that means 98% had zero chance of closing. That's a lot of wasted money in a given year. This year, it's probably going to be around 88 million in leads sold to our industry. And so what I wanted to do was take the blueprint of success that I've had with lead generation and create an online training that will give them A to Z of everything on how to generate leads organically, how to do paid advertising, how to do the scripting, the follow-up, the calls, and everything else. And look, this was stuff that I created based off of listening to other awesome lead people, right? Like a Chris Smith, a curator. The conversion code is one of my Bibles when it comes to converting leads. And so I used all of this, because it's simply not something that's done in our industry. They'll listen to another loan officer, or they've been kicked around from one office to another or whatever, and they just do what they know. So it's not their fault. So I take the training from global marketers that deal with high volume industries and verticals, because that marketing is still the same. And that's another problem with our industry, is we think that real estate and mortgage, the marketing has to be different, which is just stupid, because a consumer is a consumer regardless of product. It's all about decision science and understanding why people say yes, and then understanding the message and what resonates with them, and then deploy that. Yes, it's different, right? Just like a product. If I was selling makeup or selling books, or it really doesn't matter, because like I said, a consumer is a consumer. So I'm taking all of this in leadswebinar.com to train them to how to be successful generating leads. And I'm doing that because I feel that, one, this industry's given me a lot, and I wanted to give back in a way that was meaningful at a time where I think loan officers need it the most. And that's, how do I generate business? But I also feel that they give up so quickly on lead generation because they think that it's deals on a platter, and they don't understand that majority of the people in the country don't have good credit. They don't understand that it's about a 6 to 12 month nurture at best for internet leads, and understanding that if you are converting at, let's say, 3 to 5%, you are considered like the platinum standard, gold standard of lead conversion. They think that they get a lead, they should be able to convert it, and it just doesn't work that way. So there's a massive, misunderstanding of what, and not comprehending what it takes to do, successful lead generation at scale. And so that's what Leads Webinar is. The other thing is I'm a coach for Next Level, like you mentioned, and We just launched an online community that's off of social media, because we knew that the future is not going to be on Facebook with everything that's happening on there, and you can't even say certain words now. And I'm not even getting into like I'm talking like just dumb stuff that you say and you get flagged for it, and you get in Facebook jail for 30 days for something that was nothing. And so we knew that we had a couple friends that we knew that got their Facebook groups closed down or they lost their account completely, and it really screwed up their business. So we knew that if we were going to create a scalable business, we had to be off of social media, because we don't own that. You're just renting the attention on there. You don't own any of that. So we created this new community, and it's an app. It's online, and it's just amazing. And so one of the things that I did just to trying to get everyone jazzed up for the rest of this year is I did a 60-day launch on November 1st, a 60-day marketing sprint. So I got about 90 people in that mastermind and that coaching group while I'm helping them every day, accountability and coaching calls once a week. But every day they get something that they could use to do. And, and I don't need to tell you guys this, but we know that the 80-20 rule in our business is 100% live and well, meaning that, 80% of your business as a lender is done, or a brokerage is done by your top 20%. Sometimes it's your top 10 or top 15. And so what I'm trying to help the loan officers at the next level that have raised their hand and said that I want to be better, I want to be the best, whatever that version is for them. We don't try to make a mold of a perfect LO and say you need to be that, like other coaching programs do. We say, look, what do you want to be as a loan officer? How successful? What does success mean to you? Because it's a different answer for every loan officer, depending on where they're at in their life. And so that's what we do, is we help loan officers be the best version of what they want to be, not what we think they should be. And through that community, we pour everything that we can into them to help them win, because we know if we could help them be the 20%, especially since so many people are tapping out of this market, and there's going to be more attrition, and there's going to be just, more volatility for the foreseeable future. Like, business can be done. We're still going to be at, maybe 1.1 trillion in business done this year, even in a bad market. So which really isn't that far off when you think about, compared to the last 2 years it is, but historically it isn't. And, what I always say is that business is always done regardless of what the market conditions are. The difference is who's doing the business. And so we want those people to be the 20%. And that's with Leads Webinar, what we're doing with coaching, what we're building at LeadPops. All of that is working in conjunction with each other to create what I call a growth ecosystem for the, and I hate saying the modern loan officer, but I would say for the enlightened, for the elite originator.
Yeah. And, talking about leads a little bit and talking about perception and marketing, I think so often the mistakes I see originators make is that they see things through their own lens, and they don't understand that the consumer, for example, doesn't understand the different channels of the mortgage industry, doesn't understand necessarily even completely the difference between where the real estate agent stops and the loan officer begins. And so when we begin to look at things through the eyes of our actual audience, and we're targeting our marketing for the intended audience instead of what we think that we would like to see, the game changes. And then conversely, generating leads is amazing. In and of itself, that's an art form. What you do with them, though, is all the difference of what your conversion ratio really is. And Brad and I have talked about this for ages and ages and ages. It's the lack of consistency. If you don't have a cadence to those leads, if you're not following up in a certain way every time, you're lowering your own percentage of success because you're not applying the same method to every single lead that comes in the door.
Jason, I'd like to, you're doing a lot, right? Before we kind of get to your current gig at LeadPops and what you're doing over there, you brought up a few things I actually didn't know about you. The tech background being one, working with Peter Thiel. I think that's super interesting. I want to dive into that. But before I do that, you said, you're giving these marketing ideas, 60 days, just pack filled. I would love it if you could share with us and our audience just one great marketing idea. Just give them a taste of what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to just but I'll tell you like an example of something that I did with the coaching group, right?
Great.
And it's not really a marketing. I mean, it is, but it's more about also being intelligent about the data that you have in front of you that doesn't cost you anything. So what I did was I gave everyone. Basically you could search for like anything, right, on Google and Google will actually give you the recommendations based off of what users are searching for in a given month. And so what I did was, and then there's also a great tool called Answer the Public that kind of helps like validate some of that as well. And so what I did was I said, for getting a mortgage, these are the top 5 things that people were asking, right? Like self-employed, no credit. And to Jamie's point, when it's talking about having that lens of understanding your audience, what loan officers will put out is stuff that they're comfortable with. Things like, oh, I would answer that. Yeah, because you're in the business, right? Like, I love football. If I was in football, I would love that. But is the normal consumer going to resonate with that message? And so what I did is I said, look, you don't need to pull your hair out or pay money to find out what people are searching for. I'm giving it to you right now. So I gave them 5 things. I said, if all you did for the rest of this year was create videos, a podcast, blogs, articles, look, people don't understand. You could reach out to any publication, like a local news or whatever, and just say, hey, this is a common search term and I know people are searching for it. Do you want some more traffic to your website? I could write as a mortgage professional about getting a mortgage, as a self-employed person, right? Or I could talk about, getting a mortgage and bad credit. Or the number one question is, should I wait till 2023 to buy a house, right? And so you have content for days because you're a mortgage professional. You should be able to speak intelligently and have a conversation about all of that. And you don't have to just, shoot your shot just in one piece of content. You can then repurpose a blog post into multitude of different pieces of content, which is also what I talk about as well to the coaching group. But basically, I just said, look, content is not that hard to find. You're overcomplicating what it is. But I gave them 5 top terms as it relates to getting a mortgage. And then I gave them the top 3 searches as it relates to mortgage and real estate in general. And that's where hey, should I buy a house in 2022? Because it's the conversations that we're not having. It's like this whole, hey, now's a great time to buy a house. And then I get why loan officers will kind of bark back at me when I say to stop saying that. And I get it. But again, just like you said, Jamie, it's about looking through their own lens. And so, the marketing advice I say is that, look, like the content's there. You have content for days. If you've been in this business for at least 2 years, look in your sent folder. There's plenty of content in there because you're answering the same question probably over and over again. And another thing, just like, which is more tactical, is like, hey, I gave them the best times from a Monday through Friday, the best times to send an email. Right. So that, so they know, like, hey, this is the best time to get, if they're doing prospecting or whatnot, these are the chances of getting my email read, or the perfect Instagram bio, how to do an Instagram bio that works, or the best times to post on Instagram, but do it in a grid, and understanding that there is no best time, but taking all the data from all the reports that are out there and showing them how to consolidate all of that so they can then test and learn and try it themselves.
Sounds like a lot of very practical, like blocking and tackling, right?
Yep.
So, great ideas. Most people don't know that you can look up the traffic on search terms. So, obviously for somebody who's a marketer, that's table stakes. But for those that don't, so it sounds like a really terrific group that is going to get a lot of benefit before the end of the year here, which is perfect timing to take them into 2023.
Yeah. The thing about Frazier is, and one of the reasons we kind of became friends, is we would, I would ask him for advice on something years back, and he would just offer up knowledge with no ask in return. And then we started bouncing ideas off of each other, and we still do today. Wherever we are, wherever we land, whatever we're focusing on, from time to time, we'll ping one another. And it's really interesting that you can see how data focused everything that Jason does is, because he has a way of taking all of that information, digesting it, and giving it out to originators in a way that they can understand easily and implement into their daily business to see results. And that is huge. It's a huge value to our industry.
Yeah, most definitely. So let's take a second now, Jason, and go back in time, right? So you're working for Peter Thiel. Yep. I want to hear about that experience. How close were you with him? For those and explain who Peter is to those that don't know.
Yeah, so Peter, I think people refer to him now as like a serial entrepreneur, that type of stuff. But back then he was with Elon, and had just sold. When I met him, him and Elon had just sold PayPal to eBay, and that's actually it's funny is that, so I was working for a construction management firm at that time, running their technology and integration side. So basically, like if they were moving a client, I would help them procure equipment, get it set up, work with their tech teams, that type of stuff. And so when and we were a small firm that ended up being absorbed by CBRE. The when we got him as a client, I was like, oh man, that's pretty cool. I heard of PayPal. Obviously everyone had. eBay at the time. This was 2002, 2001, somewhere around there. I think 2000, so around there somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in tech, right? So like I'm geeking out about all this stuff. And so what had happened is, it's actually kind of a cool story. I think so, at least. And so I was working with the people at eBay because a lot of those, the technology guys at PayPal were working with me because Peter had hired them, and they were going to go work for the hedge fund, which was Clarion Capital at the time, which is now Teal Capital, but Clarion Capital at the time, and they at the literally like the last second, they bowed out because the merger between PayPal and eBay, they offered them a crap load of money to stay and work on the connection between PayPal and eBay and getting all that integrated. So basically, Peter was going to open up his hedge fund in 2 weeks. And there was probably about, and they hadn't done anything because they had been so bogged down in the eBay PayPal stuff, that I had 2 weeks to get the hedge fund completely up and running. But now the cool thing is I bought all the equipment. I'd already done all of that. It was all sitting in their office. It was at 555 California, the Bank of America building, downtown financial district, San Francisco. So, so they were screwed, and I went in there because I'd already done all it. Like that's, people don't understand, like, just because of my background, that's like playing with toys for me, like building servers and setting up networks and stuff like that. Because I am a Cisco certified internet expert, and I went all through all the certifications, top engineer. And so I went in there, and it was basically a 2-month job that I got done in 2 weeks. I slept in their office. I slept on the server room. I got everything, just dialed in with their networks, their T1s, and all of that stuff. And it impressed the team. Now, I wasn't working for like Peter directly, so I don't want to ever give like, hey, I was in his inner circle or his best friend or what. I was, as close as Peter as someone like me is going to get, working with him, in other areas with his family and stuff like that. And he trusted me enough to be the guy that he was. There was some, I can't get into too much of the details, but for some of you that had seen The Social Network, the movie,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at this, I could talk about it now because it's public knowledge, but like the scenes when they're in the courtroom and they're looking at emails and IMs and stuff like that, about that, those were things that I uncovered doing discovery because of a court order. Right. And so like when we were going through getting their hard drives scanned and whatnot for the lawsuit and all that stuff, I was the one trusted enough to be there to make sure that there was no funny business. And, and he trusted me enough to put him in anything that he invested in. I went in there to look at technology. I consulted for those. The biggest name that you guys may or may not know, but a lot of people would, is called Palantir, publicly traded company that does data modeling, works with the NSA, CIA. So I was there in the very beginning as a consultant for them. And so like that was a great world. It was interesting. That's where I really learned what it means to be a contrarian. When I joined the hedge fund, and again, don't take this wrong, this had nothing to do with me, but like, I got there when we were, I think we were maybe 150 million of AUM, and then in less than 4 years got it to over 8.5 billion. Got to meet a lot of great people. A lot of people that are famous now. Some of the people I worked with served in the Trump administration, ambassadors to countries, that type of stuff. Working with the NSA as a consultant, and so. People, Sean Parker, you saw him in The Social Network, I knew him. So like, it's things of that. I was a trusted resource, for them to use, and, and it was a great time. I would never ever, not had that experience with I mean, these people are once in a generation minds. They really are just different thinkers, and it's hard to, me, like I don't come from an Ivy League. I'm talking, these were Stanford MBAs, Yale, Harvard, MIT, like chess grandmasters. These were like serious brains, and I was in the room, and I was blessed enough just to be there, and I was not stupid enough to let that go without me being a sponge and just really just trying to dissect how they thought, what they did to, when they invested and all. I didn't understand that world at all.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to, but I wanted to know why they made the decisions that they did, and just be a fly on the wall, because in my position running all of the technology and all the security for the company, I got exposed to a lot of data and everything. And I used all of that just to shape myself as a professional, to have a better and deeper understanding of what macroeconomics are, and understanding why markets move the way they do.
Man, I find that so interesting. Of course, we don't have a ton of time to go into that deep, but just the fact that you were doing the due diligence and in the systems of the companies you were looking to acquire or invest in is pretty interesting. I wonder if we could just talk for a moment about your role at LeadPops, and then Jamie's
Sure.
going to have a question for you that she likes to ask all of our guests.
Talk to me about LeadPops. We've been LeadPops customers in the past. Obviously, big fans of Andrew's, and Brad and Andrew have actually gotten to know each other a bit over the last year or so, and like to talk tech and compare notes and all that good stuff. So tell us about this new venture.
Yeah. So, what I've discovered about myself is that, it's hard for me to work for a lender, just because and it's not, and again, I don't want anyone to take this wrong. I love, I had a great time working for EPM at Victorian Finance, Cardinal Financial. But I enjoyed more being a consultant, working with, consulting with a UWM or a Home Point, a Caliber, all those, back in the day. And, there's just too many guardrails that don't allow me to do what I know what I could do. And I get it, right? There's governance and stuff that you have to, adhere to. And I just I don't play well in those in those world. So, when the opportunity at LeadPops came up, Andrew and I had talked about working together for a while. And before I went to, Victorian, Andrew has like, hey, let's talk. Let me throw my hat in the ring. But I already committed to Victorian. And so I didn't want to go back on what I committed to, but that was like the more exciting role for me, is to come and work with Andrew, because we align a lot on how we look at the industry, look at marketing. I'm a marketer, pure and simple. And so I love what I do. So my job here is to not just grow the company of LeadPops through a very challenging time in the market, but also to make sure that our clients are in a better position than they are working with any other firm. And so, I'm bringing my expertise from coaching. Leads webinar is another example of that. My connections, that's another thing that I prided myself as being a connector in this industry. So partnerships and things through other companies that, that I've had a relationship with, just as a consultant or as an advisor, bringing them together and figure out how we could lock arms at LeadPops to create a true growth ecosystem in a time that it's desperately needs in this industry. Now, it's different. A lot of people don't understand it, but the clients that do get it, they're reaping the rewards. And so my job is to help them, have a blueprint for success using our growth solutions, and then helping them create, some stickiness with our, not just like, hey, we do this, we could generate leads, we have a funnel, we could help you with your reviews and your local listings and all that stuff. But did you know that you're going to get coaching once a month? Did you know that you're going to get actual training that you would have to pay thousands of dollars for somewhere else, that you're going to get for free with us? You're going to get content. You're going to get ways of, because people don't know, I coach agents for 2 years, right? So I've worked on the real estate side. I've spoken at, CAR at their Reimagine conference. I've spoken on Inman at San Francisco and Las Vegas and New York. In fact, at the time that I spoke on the main stage, I was the only other mortgage professional that's ever done that prior to me was Anthony Shea of Loan Depot. And so so I know the real estate world very well. And so I use that to help create relationships, because I know what agents want. I've spent thousands of hours in focus groups, just trying to understand agents. I did it for my loan officers so I could create stronger and better relationships. So I'm taking all of that knowledge, everything that I've done for the last 13 years in this industry, and I'm pouring it all into leadpops so that our clients will be with us. They'll be with us for life because there's no way they're going to get any other better value anywhere else.
That's pretty awesome. Very fortunate the people that sign up and work with you.
Well, different is better, and you're being the differentiator like you always are. Okay, so I do have a question for you.
Yep.
It's a good one. What would you tell your 20-year-old self? What advice would you give that person?
Yeah, it's so funny. If I went back to and it's tough for me, right? Because a lot of people don't know I had my son when I was 20, right? So my oldest, I have 3 kids. My son, Nicholas, Nick, he's my oldest. He actually still lives in California with his mom. At 20, what I would, if I'm looking back now, is I did, it's tough because I didn't do a lot of stupid stuff like a lot of guys do in their 20s. Right, Brad? Right?
Come on, Jason.
And that's based off no information.
Ask my kids. I was perfect.
I'm just throwing that out there. No, but because I had a son, I had someone that I had to take care of. I was a 20-year-old boy trying to take care of a baby, and so I didn't get a screw around like with my friends did. A lot during their 20s. I had to grow up really damn quick, and so if I look back on 20, what I would have said is I probably would have gone I would have told myself to go faster, because even though I was very ambitious and I did grow pretty quick, I became a very young executive. That was a goal I set for myself at, by 30, I was there by the age of 29. But what I would have told myself at 20 was to go faster, but not at the detriment of the present, because I feel that I did that. And I think what I mean by that is I could have got where I was quicker by being smarter, but also not, it's not something I'm proud to say. I get a little choked up when I actually say it out loud, but, I wasn't a great father, because I wasn't present. I just was not present for my son. That's something that I try to do for my daughter and my son now, who are, 10 and 6 respectively. But, I wasn't there a lot. And, because I mentioned, building that network out and being, that my son would have been 5 years old around that time.
Yeah.
So guess what? I didn't see him at all during those 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So it's stuff like that. My ambition trumped what I should have really been doing as a father and a human being. Now, it was all for his benefit, because I was, in the story I told myself is that I'm working so he never has to want for anything, right? And it wasn't a lie, that was true. But it's also because I truly loved what I do, and I love being in that world and being a part of all of that. But there's times that I'm never going to get back with him, and it's tough. And so, I've had that conversation with him and let him know that I'm sorry but just to let you know, there was a point for that of me not being there, because, at that time I had to borrow money from my mom and everything else to survive rent. And, as people know, California, what is not cheap now, it wasn't cheap back then either. And so, it was, it was a tough time, and I could have been a better father. And so I would say move faster by being smarter, but not at the detriment of being present, for not just to smell the roses, but also be there for my son.
Oh, that's great advice and great reflection, and something that resonates with both of us, because, Brad and I have worked together on and off for, the better part of 23 years now. And, I waited until later in life to have my daughter, who's 8. But Brad's kids are now, in their 20s. And I watched Brad during that boom. I watched him work like crazy while the kids were young. And I'm sure he can speak to his experience there. But I know that for me, it's always a battle for my desire to move forward and win and achieve and grow and bring everybody on the team along with me. You get this, you get this amazing fulfillment and this high almost off of the journey, the destiny, we're going full throttle. And then you have to switch over and go, wait, there's a little person that when I walk in the door doesn't care how my day was, doesn't care how busy I was, doesn't care how many CEOs I, had coffee with or who I hobnobbed with. She wants to tell me about her day. She's had a rough one, whatever that is. And It's been a really conscious thing for me to have to make that switch, every single day and make those tough calls. There are days when my day starts at 4:30 in the morning and I don't take her to school that day, but I try to make up for it the other 4 days of the week. And that's the only thing we could do. It's maturity and time are the only things that ever give us the perspective to look at things a little bit differently and have a little bit more balance. Yeah,
absolutely.
So true.
Well, Jason, we've really enjoyed having you on, and it was really our pleasure. We appreciate you joining us today.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm anytime I get to talk to, my sister from another mister and Brad coming to know you, hey, I'm just excited to be able to do this, and I'm blessed, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Get Real 411 is hosted by Brad Rice and Jamie Cavanaugh, produced by Stuart Gelin, and recorded live from the AmeriFund Home Loan Studio in Simi Valley, California. You can learn more about the show at getreal411.com and watch full episodes on YouTube. If you're interested in being a guest on Get Real 411, email booking@getreal411.com. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.